Hi everyone, it's TheTidesChanging here, and welcome to another Sims 4 speed build. This is part 1 of the speed build for a house that I've named Fox Ridge Estate, and as many of you know, this is the house that was made in the Let's Build a Suburban House series, so pretty much I just took all the footage from the series, sped it up, edited a bit, and put it together, and I had over an hour of footage, so I felt like it would be best just to split it into two parts. And the second part will be up in a couple of hours for those of you who just want to watch everything in one day. I decided to put this together because I felt like it would be a good way to summarize the series and reflect back on everything that was done in it for those of you who did watch the series, because it was started over 2 months ago. And I also thought it'd be a good way for those of you who didn't watch the series but were still interested in seeing the process of this house being built without actually having to watch the whole 10-hour long series to be able to see the house being built. I really did enjoy the Suburban Let's Build series. It was just really nice to be able to get the input of viewers as I build rather than just kind of figuring things out on my own. Because a lot of times when I build, I don't get things right the first time. Like, I'll get kind of stuck, so then I just take a break from whatever I'm working on and go to a different part of the house, or I just stop building completely and then come back to it a few hours later. But it was really nice whenever I got stuck to just be able to say, hey, I'm sort of stuck here, what do you all think I should do? And then people who had an idea of what I should do would, of course, comment. And then I also would think about it myself, so then I could kind of take the thoughts that I developed about what I was stuck on and also what other people suggested and just roll it together into a really great idea. And I got a lot of really awesome suggestions for this house that I think when put together made this house turn out really, really great. Like, probably one of the best houses I've done, especially the interior, because a lot of people suggested really interesting details on the interior of the house that I would not have thought of. And that's just the really cool thought about Let's Builds, is that I get to hear ideas from people that I normally wouldn't have myself, so it just combines together in a very interesting way. So I think that just gave this whole series a really nice collaborative feel. Like, it wasn't just the viewers watching me build and not having a say, like that the viewers actually had a say in what I was doing. And I will be starting a new Let's Build series this weekend. I'm shooting for Sunday, and I will be doing the same thing with this series, taking suggestions and all of that. So if you didn't watch the last series and, what I just said about it sounds interesting to you, I would love it if you would join me in the next series. But now I'm going to move on to talking about the house itself. So right now we are still in what was done during the first part of the series, where I laid out the basic structure of the house and the floor plan and all of that. Although the structure of the house does change a lot in the second part of the series, because originally I wanted the house to just be kind of a cozy small suburban house, not a huge mansion type one. Like, I wanted it to be a fairly big house, but not humongous. But then the house as it is now looks sort of awkward, especially with that area on the right side of the house that is just the first floor only, because it's just a really thin area, so it just looks sort of weird. And then right now is when I go and just like really change up the floor plan. Like, I just brought that out a little bit, made that area of the house a little bit wider, because that area was supposed to be where the dining room, formal living room, and study is, but it just looks so narrow that it was kind of odd. So then I brought it out and made it wider, and then added a second floor area on top of it, which just added a lot of space to the house and made it a lot bigger than I intended it to be. So this house just sort of kept growing and growing from the size I originally wanted it to be. But in the end, I do like how it turned out. It just made the series quite a bit longer than I thought it would be, because originally I thought it would be like a 10 to 15 part series, like maybe closer to 10 parts, but then it ended up being a 17 part series, which I guess isn't that bad. But right now I'm just trying to work out adding in an attic, because a couple of people did want to see an attic in this house, so I decided why not give it a try. But the only thing is, attics in The Sims 4 are a little bit more annoying, because unless you have the walls down all the way, you can't see anything in them when you're in the build mode. Like, the roof is just up if you have the walls cut away or all the way up. So unfortunately when furnishing it, I did have to furnish it with the walls down, which was a little bit tricky, because I'm not used to furnishing that way, but it did end up working out in the end. So I just sort of put a somewhat hidden staircase going up to the attic over here, because I didn't want it to be out in the open like the main staircase. And I was originally going to have another half bathroom up there in the attic, but then I decided not to do that in the end, because there's already, like, I think this house ended up being 5 bathrooms and 6 bedrooms. So this house is perfect for just a humongous family. I think a few people commented on parts of the series saying that they're going to use this house for the 100 baby challenge. I could see this being a good house for that, because it's got a lot of bedrooms, and the bedrooms are also pretty big, so you could fit multiple beds in each of the bedrooms. But right here I was trying to work out what to do with the windows because I really wanted to use shuttered windows, but a lot of the walls were an odd number length, so the shuttered windows didn't really work out that well. So in the front of the house there aren't really too many shuttered windows just because they didn't fit in that well, which bothered me a little bit, but that was just kind of how the house ended up being, and I felt like that was a good width and I didn't want to make it narrower or wider, so I just sort of left that how it is. And then right here I was putting in a back porch. And then I went on to adding some more windows to the back of the house and also adding additional details to the house because at first it was a little bit more boxy looking than I would like, so I just kept adding little bump outs here and there just to add more detail to the house and make it look a little bit more interesting. Because it was especially boxy looking from the side of the house, which did give me a little bit of trouble as far as placing the windows because I didn't want to place too many windows and have it look too busy, but then I also felt like when I just had a few windows that the sides of the house looked a little bit bare. But then again, from what I've seen, a lot of the suburban style houses that this house was made after have rather blocky sides, like the sides of the houses are just kind of straight, like there's really nothing coming out of it. But I did go and add a wraparound porch to the house because I thought that would add a bit more detail to the house and would also help with the roof along the back porch looking sort of odd, because before I was using either the half gable roof or the half hipped roof. And with how the back porch was, it just looked sort of strange because it would just kind of come through in areas I didn't want it to. And then I also did bring the house out a little bit along the right side and the front because of the half gable roof that was originally there, you know, in front above the front porch was kind of popping through a little bit. So I just moved it forward so that it wasn't, because it did look a little bit too busy. So the house just kept growing bit by bit as I kept adding, you know, bringing it out a little bit in certain spots to add more detail. And then right here I'm finishing up adding the windows around the back of the house because I forgot to add windows to the bottom floor there, so I'm just taking care of that right now. And after that I moved on to trying to figure out what siding or what wallpaper to use on the house itself. I did have a bit of trouble picking out the colors because I didn't want to just use siding all over the place because I felt like that would be a little bit plain, but then I also had trouble finding a brick that I really felt fit in. So I just messed around a lot with different color combinations. Like initially I just put this white siding on the house, and then I was trying out different bricks, trying out different stones, but then I felt like nothing looked quite right on the house. And then I also picked out this darker wood here along the deck. And then I just took a break from doing the wallpaper to add some other details of the house, like the railings and columns and all of that, because this was a case where I just sort of got stuck and I was like, you know, what color do you all think I should make this house? And then, you know, people suggested what they thought I should do. Some people said that they thought it should be all siding, and then other people said that they thought the house should be a combo of brick and siding. So in the end, I did go with a combo of brick and sidings, but by the end of, I think this was in the third part that I did this, at the end I just changed everything to be siding because I wasn't completely happy with the brick. And it just really seemed like nothing matched, like the bricks were either too red or too gray. And I also tried out blue for the shutters originally, just because I like blue and I thought it might look kind of nice with the white wallpaper, because I was originally planning on just leaving the white siding all over the place. But then after I finished recording the third part, I thought about it a bit and tried out some other colors on my own, and I ended up deciding on going with this tan siding color right here. Like, it's sort of an orangish tan color. And then I also paired it with this reddish brick, so that pairing actually worked out pretty well and went together. And then I also changed the shutters to be a black color because I felt like that was what really fit in with it best, because the white shutters were just a little bit too plain, and the black shutters definitely complemented the house the best. So once I changed everything to this reddish, orangish tan siding with the brick, it all just seemed to fit in much better. And then for the living room here, I decided to put in really large windows just so that you would have a really nice view of the garden from the living room there. And then I did make some adjustments to the foundation. So for the foundation, I did use I guess the like lattice type foundation wherever there was a deck, and then I just used brick foundation everywhere else, which ended up working out well because I think in the spots where I used the brick foundation, there wasn't any brick. So you didn't have that issue with the brick wallpaper not quite matching the brick foundation. And then I also added this little bump out here just to add some detail to the side of the house, which I felt really helped a lot with putting things together, and then also allowed me to put shuttered windows where I wouldn't have been able to put shuttered windows before. So it just really helped a lot with this house. And then I also added brick to the bump out for a little bit of extra detail. And once I got the coloring correct, the house really just came together a lot better. Like, this looks a lot better than the white siding that I was originally going to leave this house with. And then I also, of course, had to change the color of the roof. So I changed the roof to a more black kind of a color, which did help it to look a lot better because the black better matched the shutters, which once again just really brought the house together. And then I believe this was where I started working on the landscaping of the house. So in the front of the house, the landscaping was pretty simple because the house has a rather small front yard, so I couldn't really fit a whole lot in. So I did decide to just put some trees on either side of the house because I like having a lot of trees in yards because I feel like it really helps to fill it in, but then you don't want to have too many trees and have the yard look like a forest. So I tried not to overfill the yard with landscaping, but I did want to have it look like, it was pretty well landscaped. And I went with more of a natural, unsymmetrical kind of landscaping because I felt like, this is a family who would have a lot of kids, so they probably wouldn't want to have this high maintenance garden because if you have a garden that isn't quite as well manicured, it doesn't require as much maintenance, you can just kind of let it grow wild and fits in a little bit more. And I'm really happy with how the landscaping of this house turned out, and I'm also really happy with how the house turned out in general. I mean, at first I was kind of worried that the house wouldn't turn out looking right, especially since it looked kind of awkward after the first part. And then I also had some comments saying that people weren't sure how they felt about the house at first, but then they ended up really liking it once I made adjustments. So I'm glad I was able to take the house that started out looking kind of awkward and make it look a lot better by the end of the series. But this gardening was done before the Move Objects, the patch containing Move Objects was released, so there was a lot of messing around with trying to get the gardening objects to fit in right. Like, having the Move Objects cheat just makes gardening so much easier, so I'm glad that that's in there now. But this is basically, apart from this tree here, all that was really added to the front garden as far as flowers and bushes and all that go. Because I just left everything else sort of blank because I didn't want to fill out the front yard too much. Like, I didn't want to have a front yard that was just completely filled with plants. And I did go back in later and adjust it a bit because it was pointing out to me that the plants that were in there looked kind of weedy because a lot of them were low-lying. So I just took all the lower-lying plants out and put in more actual flowers, which I also think helped to really improve the garden in the front here a lot. So that was just, like I said before, that was just a really cool thing about the Let's Build was that I do sometimes miss details. Like, I'm a very detail-oriented, a particular person, but I do at times miss details, so it was kind of cool that people would point out things that I missed, and then, I could just end up making the house better than I think it would have been had I made it on my own. And I also just learned a lot from the series and picked up some new tricks to use in future builds, and then, I hope also that people who watch the series learn some new tricks as well, whether it's things that I did or things that I did based on suggestions. Like, I just feel like it was a really cool learning experience for everyone to not only see like my tricks but see tricks of other people. But getting back to the whole landscaping thing, right now I'm working on putting the trees along the side of the house, and here's when I started working on the back of the house. So I did add a pool in, which was frequently requested, and I wanted the backyard of this house to have a very well landscaped kind of a look to it, with lots of plants and all that stuff, and also with a bar and an outdoor eating area. I just wanted to look like a very upscale kind of a backyard, but when it came to figuring out what kind of pavement to use around the pool, I had a little bit of trouble at first. Like, I was trying out all these different terrain paints and none of them seemed to look right. So then I ended up deciding on this concrete floor right here, which ended up looking pretty good because, a lot of times, like, if you go to a community pool, they have concrete or pavement around it, not really rocks, although, I guess there are some people who have rocks, but this was just the look that I felt fitted best for this house, and it was something I hadn't really done before because usually I would just use terrain paint, so it was nice to try something different. And then here I am adding in that bar, and then I also made the tile at the edges of it or at the corners of it diagonal just for a little bit of extra detail, like a nice touch. And for those of you who don't know, I did want to quickly say that to place tile diagonally, you just hold down Control and F at the same time, and then it will allow you to do that. But I did place a lot of plants around the little paved area that the pool was on, just because, like I said, I want to look very well landscaped. Then I also added in this rock border at first, but then I do end up taking it out later because I felt like it looked a little bit too busy. I did want to add in a fencing border around the pavement, but unfortunately none of the fences that come in The Sims 4 are low enough, because the one I showed before was the lowest one, and that was clearly not low enough. But I also added a nice big oak tree behind the bar because I thought it would look really pretty to look back at the bar and see a tree. And then over here on the other side I put an eating area, so I just thought it'd be really nice to have a little area where they could eat beside the pool, like the parents could sit there and eat while they watch their kids swimming or something like that, or it'd be good for pool parties, although pool parties don't exist, unfortunately. And then also right now I'm adding in plants on the other side, so I just spent a lot of time trying to add in plants, especially since the lack of move objects at this point made it a bit more difficult due to not being able to place things where I want. But at this point I'm almost done with placing all the plants, so just doing it on the other side of that little eating area right there. And then as you can see, there's also a path going from the eating area over to the sidewalk over there. Because I thought it'd be good to have some sidewalk, a path going over to the sidewalk there. And then I also added another plant here. And I also added in a jungle gym since this is a family home. You know, I figured having some playground equipment in it would be perfect. And then I just put a nice oak tree in there behind that. And then right here I was getting rid of the shuttered windows I added in the front there. And also adjusting the landscaping along the side of the house because with the large, I think they're called cherry blossom trees, I'm not 100% sure, but those big pink trees, it was just a little bit too busy to have tall trees along the side there. And then I also put in a smaller tree on the other side because it was a little bit too busy with all those trees. And then I do just completely get rid of the trees along the side of the house because it's just too much with those trees that are already in the world that I can't get rid of. And then I also went and moved the whole pool area back one tile because a few people pointed out that it was a little bit too close to the stairs, and then when I looked at it, I realized that it sort of was. So I moved it back one, which unfortunately meant that I did have to redo a lot of the plants because you can't pick up and move plants. I really wish you could, but that meant that I had to spend a good bit of time just replacing plants, unfortunately, which probably wasn't terribly exciting to watch, but you know, it's just what I had to do with moving the pool back a spot. But since I'm going to be spending a little while placing plants, I didn't want to say that the name for this house came about because I just wanted to give this house a very suburban development kind of name. So I actually found this website that was a suburban development name generator. So I thought that was kind of interesting that I came across it. So I just kept like clicking it until Fox Ridge came up and I was like, oh, that sounds sort of cool. So then I just stuck estate on the end of it. So it was like, so it just sounded like an actual house because Fox Ridge doesn't really sound like much of a house name. But if you're looking for names for how, you know, family homes like this, then that's something you could do, like just look up a suburban development generator and then just add estate or house on the end of it or whatever you want. At this point though, I do believe that I'm almost done with the landscaping, or at least on that side of the house, but there's not really a whole lot to do over on this side. And then I believe I did thin out the rock border a bit because I didn't completely get rid of it, but I just kind of made it a little bit more spread out so it wasn't so busy, which I think was a good compromise between getting rid of it and leaving it as busy as it was. And when it came to placing the rocks, the lack of move objects on really made it difficult. So at that point, all of the replacing of the plants is finally done. And then I did decide to place in a new bar right there, which I think this one does tie together with the colors of the house pretty well because you've got the white on it matching the white on the railings and stairs, and then it's also got browns to match the browns that are on the house, and there's also sort of a black or gray color that matches the blacks on the house. And then I did also fence in the backyard because, you know, a lot of houses, like development houses, I guess, have fenced in backyards. So that definitely helped to make it look a lot better. And then I also added in a little gardening area in the back there because I wasn't sure what else to do with that space. And plus I figured it'd be good for a family house to have a gardening area in it. And then the last little bit of landscaping in the backyard is adding in some plants into the corner here. So at this point, actually putting in the plants and everything was pretty much done, so the last bit of the exterior decorating is just placing the objects on the deck. The first thing that I added was the grill that you see here, and I just placed in that corner right there because I felt like it'd be good to have it be really close to the kitchen, so you can get the food out of the fridge and then you don't have to walk too far with it to get to the grill. And then I also put in a little seating area right here that looks over the pool, just because I thought that would be nice. Although I did have some trouble with figuring out what chairs I wanted to use, like whether I wanted to go with the really formal chairs like what I originally had or go with the more casual modern chairs like these ones. So I did just switch it to the more modern ones, and then I just stuck benches all over the place as sort of a placeholder because I wasn't completely sure what I wanted to do furniture wise on the deck. So I just stuck those there for like I said, as placeholders, and then came back to it later on and just moved on to doing the nighttime lighting. So I just placed a bunch of these wall lights all over the place, and then also some ground lights to light the pool area and also the area right here where the monkey bars were. And then after that, I did go back to the whole furnishing, and then I also did just switch up the lights there near the monkey bar some, because originally I just had the light behind the tree, so the tree kind of blocked it. And then I did end up changing the seating area that was there before to be a table, so additional eating area in case, you know, the table near the pool is filled up. And then I also added in some potted plants to add a little bit of extra decoration to the deck. And then I also did add in this painting easel here because I thought it'd be really nice to have an easel where Sims could look out over the river for inspiration as they painted. And I also added in some of these garden items near the garden to look like, you know, they just left it there while they were working on their little garden. And I was going to put seating right there, but then I felt like it would be too busy with the easel. And I also added a chess table in right there on the deck. And then on this side, I just have a bench, so they can just sit in the bench and look out over the river since there's no seating behind where the easel is. And then I just added a table with a lamp and then another potted plant. And then beside the door here, I added 2 potted plants and then this little rabbit statue. And then on the other side, a little pig statue. So I definitely think the deck looks a lot more filled out. Although I did go in and change the bench that was there to be this larger, a little bit more formal one, but not one of the super formal bench. And then I did change up the landscaping on the side here. So I just, like I said before, I ended up just removing the trees completely and just adding a layer of plants beside the foundation just to make it look a little bit more filled in. So I do think that that made the side of the house there look a lot better. At this point, apart from a few last details, the exterior of the house is pretty much done. So I went in and replaced that double door I had there originally with two glass doors, which really fit in a lot better because that brown door just didn't really fit in a whole lot. I also changed the bar stools to fit in a little bit better and then changed up some of the plants. And now it is time to move on to the interior of the house. So first I just went in and added the arches between the rooms, or the arches and the doors on the rooms in the first floor. And then I just used this wood floor here that I really like to use. I've said it before that this is my favorite of the wood floors. I did have a little bit of trouble when it came to furnishing the foyer area first, just because this house has a rather large foyer. Like, it's a little bit easier when you have a smaller room because, you know, you don't have to put as many objects in to fill it out. And plus, I just wasn't really sure what should go into a foyer. So I did put this accent table here because, you know, I figured that was a very foyer-like item. So I just put that there with some books and a picture on it and some plants around it as well. And then my thoughts on this area right here was that it would be a reading area, but I struggled a little bit with figuring out what kind of furnishing I wanted to put into it, because I wanted this house to have more contemporary furnishing in it. Like, I didn't want it to have a very casual, like, I didn't want it to have a very formal look to it like an older house would, since, you know, I figured this is a house that realistically would be fairly new, like maybe within 20 years old. Like, I guess this typical style of house would be within that age. I'm not completely sure of that, but, you know, I didn't want to have too much old-fashioned furniture in it because I feel like that really wouldn't fit in with it well. But then at first I did put in these older looking chairs along with that coffee table there that's actually one of the exterior coffee tables, because I wanted to have a lower lying table that wasn't that was formal looking, so that one really fit in. And then I did change the chairs to be more casual looking ones and made them a green color, then changed out the table to be a more contemporary looking one, and then just put in some paintings. And then I also had this mint green wallpaper in here, which I actually did keep that wall coloring in there, and then I also put a little painting with a light above it. But after this part, I just wasn't really super happy with how the foyer area looked. So from there, I just moved on to the kitchen, and then I came back to the foyer area once I had done the kitchen and the living room, because I figured what to do with it would come to me a little bit more once I had done the rest of the open area of the house. And this house does have a rather open layout between the kitchen and the living room. So this house actually has 2 living rooms. So right off the kitchen, the sunken-in room is actually I guess it would technically be called a great room, but it's like the more casual living room, like where you have the TV and all that. And then there is also a formal living room off of the dining room that has a fireplace and fancier furniture in it. Like, I guess that's more the room for a formal gathering, like you just have the family come over and sit around the fireplace. And then, you know, the other room is where the family sits and folds clothes and watches TV together and all of that. But getting to the kitchen, at first I wanted to have a very bright and modern look, so I used these white cabinets, and then I had the mint green wallpaper in here originally that was used in the foyer area. And something I did there was I just stuck that little shelf that looked like it had some bowls in it in there, and then put some cookie jar and a book on top of it, because I thought that would fit in really well in the kitchen. That would also fill out that space between the top of the fridge and the bottom of the cabinet that you see there. And this house also does have a sink in the island. I actually had a bit of trouble with the kitchen in this house. Like, I kept going back and changing it in multiple parts. Like, it's definitely the room in the house I changed most, because most of the time, like, I would furnish a room, then people would leave suggestions, and there would be a bunch of suggestions that I thought were really good and that I wanted to use. And then, you know, the following part after I initially furnished a room, I would make those changes. And then after that, the room was pretty much done and I wouldn't really go back to it. But the kitchen, for multiple parts, I just kept going back to it. Like, I think this was done in the 8th part. And then I think before the 13th part was the last time I changed it. So over the course of 4 or 5 parts, I just kept going back and changing the kitchen, trying to make it look right, because I kept feeling like something was off with the kitchen, like it just didn't look right. So that was how the kitchen looked after the first part where I did it, and then I moved on to the living room, took a break from the kitchen. So what I did with the living room was I gave it this look like it had an entertainment center, and this was actually the 9th part that I did this in, and it was the first part I recorded after the Move Objects patch came in, which was why I was able to do the stuff with the cabinets. I did cut out a bit where I had a fireplace in the living room, but it didn't work out right because I had to have the fireplace up on the foundation. And that just looked really odd, so I ended up just completely ditching the fireplace and then just going with this entertainment center type idea with the cabinets, which I just really liked and I felt looked really good. Like, I really, really love the living room of this house. I think apart from the bedrooms, like out of the non-bedroom rooms, the living room is definitely my favorite. Although there was this huge issue with the foundation coming through. As you can see over on the right side of the living room, there is the lattice foundation popping through. And I kept having issues where, like, whenever I would change the foundation on the inside, it would change it on the decks. So for a while, I just left it, and then eventually someone suggested a way to change it that worked. So basically, the suggestion was to make a one-tile room around the outside of the living room and then change the foundation and then remove the room. And then I did that and actually changed the foundation on the interior and then kept it the same on the exterior of the deck. But at first the living room had this blue, green, and orange color scheme because I was trying to add a lot of fun pops of color into the room. And then I did end up taking the orange down a notch a bit because it was a little bit too much orange. Another touch that I really liked was I added the laundry basket next to the coffee table because I personally, whenever I fold clothes, I always watch TV because it just makes folding clothes a lot more interesting. Plus, I also feel like it's a way to justify watching TV, because I'm doing something useful while I'm watching TV, so I don't feel bad just sitting there and watching TV. But at this point, I was revisiting the kitchen, so I replaced all the walls with that tile, and then I put a bunch of the tube lights up into the cabinets to brighten the room a bit, although I added a bit too many initially, and it just made the room look way too bright. And then I also put some cabinets above the island counter, and then added some columns to the side of it just because that was something I could do because of the Move Objects patch was out. But I do end up removing that because it's just a little bit too much. And then here's when I revisit the foyer area here a bit. So I put that little accent table there. I just changed it up to a more formal one, and then changed the painting and changed up the decorations on top of it. So I added in a lamp there, and then just added some plants next to it. And then I also, I changed the plants to be some pictures so that I could put a plant next to it and it wouldn't look weird. And then I also stuck a shoe rack underneath the accent table because you actually can do that now, which I really liked how that looked. And then I changed the rugs up in there and also just changed up the curtains. So the foyer did look a lot better after these changes, although I did go back in later and change it again. And something I should mention now that we are in the interior is that there will be bits where it'll just jump all of a sudden something will be completely different without having shown the changes. And that was because there were some parts where I did the changes off camera, because once I got into the interior, I started getting a lot more suggestions, and then there were a lot more times where I just wanted to completely change things because I wasn't happy with it. So there are some parts where if I had shown the changes, it would have taken up the entire part, so I didn't want to have parts that were just changes, so I just did it off camera, which of course means I didn't record it and that I don't have the footage. So if you're ever watching and then you just all of a sudden see a room completely change, that's why. But at this point, I moved on to what is the guest bedroom. For this room, I went with a yellow and green theme, and I used some older furniture because I wanted to be I saw this room as maybe a room that a grandmother or a grandfather, grandparents would live in, so I wanted to be they brought their older furniture with them into the house, or that older furniture was put into this room since it was a spare room, it's just furnished with older furniture. So that was the idea behind this room and why it has some more formal furnishing. But right now I am working on a walk-in closet, and that's where I chose to put the dresser for this room, and then I also put some clothes hanging up, because, this is a guest room, but I figured that even if it was being used as a guest room, didn't have a cement all the time, it could still be the family stores their extra clothes in there, because, I have seen that done before. And I also put in a chair right there in that little corner, because I do end up putting a TV in there on the other side, so I just thought that would be the chair that they sit in to watch a TV. And a cool thing with the move objects cheat is that you're able to, using either 9 or 0, move objects up or down. So you can move objects up by typing 9 and then move them back down by typing 0. So I was able to use that end table to put the actually accent table to put the TV on that I normally wouldn't have been able to put it on. So it's kind of cool that we can now use those accent tables, because I always thought they would be much better for TVs than the coffee tables are. But for the wallpaper of this room, I decided to go with a yellow paneling. So I normally wouldn't use yellow walls, but I want to do something a little bit different with this room, and I felt like it fit in with the greens on the bed. And then now I'm moving on to the bathroom off of the guest bedroom. So I just made it look like the shower was sort of into the wall. Like, I really like doing that and making it look like the shower is built in. Like, I just feel like it looks a little bit better and more realistic than just having the shower out in the middle of the room. And then I also put that shelf in right there, and then, you know, that one that was empty was able to move up objects to put onto it. So that's really cool that you can put that shelf in now and then just kind of choose what objects you want to have on the shelf, so you can make it a little bit more personal to whatever room it's in. Like, when doing kids' bathrooms, I like to add toys onto the shelf. And then for the sink, I did put in a double sink initially, which kind of doesn't really make sense, I guess, since, you know, this would really be a bathroom for a single sim. So I do end up going in and just kind of redoing that, making it a single sim, or a single sink, although I do think that that's one of the changes that I did off camera, so it just kind of jumps to where the room is changed. I'm pretty sure the part after this one was the first one where I did some changes off camera. And then at first I did have this wall that was a mix of blue and tile, and then also had some bright green tiles. So things didn't perfectly match at first, but I felt like that was kind of realistic, because, you know, things in houses don't always completely match. Sometimes things are just sort of very mismatched. So I was trying to reflect that some with that bathroom. And then right now I'm working on the half bathroom. So for this bathroom, I gave it more of a contemporary, but still, you know, pretty fancy look, I guess. Like, you have that sink that's a little bit more old-fashioned, but I feel like it still has somewhat of a contemporary look to it. But as you can see here, the guest bathroom is completely different than what it was when we saw it just now. So that was, of course, where I did the changes off camera. And then also the living room looks completely different as well. So I changed all the cabinets to be brown in color instead of white, because I feel like the white just looked a little bit too bright, and I do think that the brown looked a lot better. I also did darken the cabinets in the kitchen. But now I'm moving on to the dining room, and at first I just really wasn't sure what to do with this dining room. Like, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go for a more contemporary look, or whether I wanted to give this house a very formal dining room, because I feel like the completely formal dining room wouldn't really fit in with the rest of the house that well, since the rest of it has mainly contemporary furniture. But then I felt like some of the more modern dining room furniture didn't completely fit in with the house. So initially, like, I did the whole dining room, and then I ended up not liking it. I completely scrapped it and redid the whole thing between parts 12 and 13, I think. So at first it was very formal looking with a red and blue color scheme, which is very, very strong. And I got some comments from people saying that they felt like the color scheme was a little bit odd, and I did agree with that. Like, I did the dining room, and then I was looking at it later, and I was like, what was I thinking? This just really doesn't look that great. So I just scrapped everything, completely redid it, because when I did the dining room and the formal living room and the study, I believe for some reason, like, my building inspiration wasn't fully there, so, like, what to do just wasn't coming to me as much. So after recording those two parts, parts 11 and 12, I took a bit of a break from building for I don't believe it was a whole week. It was a few days, and then after that, like, all the inspiration just came back to me, and then I just redid it and it looked a lot better. You know, I kind of wish I had gotten it right the first time, but, you know, that happens sometimes where you just kind of hit I'm not sure, like, kind of like the equivalent of writer's block, but for building in The Sims. I guess you can call it a builder's block. Yeah, we'll just go with that. It was a builder's block. But something that I did do in this dining room initially that I liked was the bar against the window there, because I wasn't sure how to fill in that space, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to have a bar that was facing away from the chairs, so that they can't really, like, you can't have Sims sitting at the other side of it getting drinks, but they can still make drinks, and I believe they can still grab the drinks as well. So it is fully functional, but it doesn't take up as much space as if you had it facing towards the room with bar stools in front of it. But I don't think you'll really get to see the redone dining room during the building part of the speed build, but you do, of course, get to see it in the showcase, so you can see how it all turned out there if you didn't actually watch the series where I showed it. But right now, moving on to the formal living room, and I actually got this room pretty right off the bat, although I did have to make some adjustments to it later on. I found this stripe pattern for the chairs here that I really liked. Like, I didn't even realize there was a stripe pattern, but then I found it and I was like, okay, this is what we're doing. And then I decided just to not have a hanging light because the hanging light was discoloring one of the couches, like that one in the back there. For some reason, kept showing up yellower than the other ones, and that just frustrated me. And I did also put some Christmas decorations into this room, although it is after Christmas, so those of you who download the house might not really want to keep it, but that's the only room in the house I put Christmas decorations in because I knew the house was going to be going up after Christmas, so I wanted to make it easy to de-Christmas the house. But I did like how the former living room turned out initially. So what I ended up doing for the rug was I just put this carpet here because I didn't really like how any of the rugs looked, so what I do when I get stuck on rugs is that I just put that swirly carpet down, use that in place of a rug because it does look pretty nice, you know, especially in formal rooms. And then I just also added some plants and other decorations to the coffee table there. And then along this wall right here, I thought it would look good to add in a nice formal bookshelf, so I just put that there and then also put in a light behind it to brighten up the room without having the light be obvious. And then right now I'm just adding in some last minute paintings and plants. But we are actually nearing the end of this video. Like I said, the second part will be up in a couple hours, but I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and bye!